Through the undertaking of his natural calling, man attains to final accomplishment. The seeker achieves final consummation through performance of his native duties. It is therefore essential that he should constantly keep his mind fixed on God, adore Him, and proceed on his way step by step. Instead of making any gain, a junior student even loses whatever he has if he sits in a senior class. So the law is that one should climb step by step. It was said in the 6th verse of this chapter that yajna, charity, and penance ought to be undertaken after abandonment of attachment and the fruits of action. Now, stressing the same point, Krishna says again that even a partially enlightened man ought to begin from the same point, from self-surrender to God.
Shreyan swadharmo vigunaha paradharmat swanushthitat स्वभावनियतं कर्म कुर्वन्नाप्नोति किल्बिषम्.
Even though unmeritorious, one's own native calling is superior to the office of others, for a man carrying out his natural obligation does not bring sin upon himself. Although inferior, one's own obligation is better than even the well-performed duties of others. A man absorbed in performing a task that is determined by his own nature does not incur sin insofar as he is not subjected to the endless cycle of entrances and exits, of birth and death. It is quite often that worshippers begin to feel disenchanted with the service they are rendering. They look at the more accomplished seekers who are absorbed in meditation and grow envious of the honor that is accorded them because of their merits. So novices at once fall to imitating. According to Krishna, however, imitation or envy can be of no avail. The final accomplishment is only by dedication to one's own native calling, not by its abandonment.
सहजं कर्म कौन्तेय सदोषमपि न त्यजेत् सर्वारम्भा हि दोषेण धूमेनाग्निरिवावृताः.
One's innate duty ought not to be forsaken, O son of Kunti, even if it is blemished, because all actions are impaired by some flaw or the other, as fire is shrouded by smoke. It is but expected that the actions of the novice seeker are flawed, for their doer is yet far from perfection. But even these actions must not be given up. Moreover, there is no action that is unimpeachable, and action has to be undertaken even by one who belongs to the Brahmin class. Imperfections, the obscuring pall of nature, are there until there is steady devotion. They come to an end only when the action natural to a Brahmin is dissipated in God. But what are the attributes of the accomplisher at the point where action is no longer of any avail?
असक्त बुद्धि सर्वत्र जितात्मा विगत स्पृहः नैष्कर्म्य सिद्धिं परमाम् सन्न्यासेनाधिगच्छति.
He whose intellect is aloof all round, who is without desire, and who has conquered his mind, attains to the ultimate state that transcends all action through renunciation. Renunciation is, as we have already seen, complete self-abnegation. It is the condition in which the seeker abandons whatever he has, and only then does he reach the point when no further action is needed. Renunciation and attainment of the supreme state of actionlessness are indeed synonymous. The yogi who has reached the state of actionlessness attains to the Supreme Being.
Siddhim prapto yatha brahma tathapnoti nibodha me samase naiva kaunteya nishtha jnanasya ya para.
Learn in brief from me, O son of Kunti, of how one who is immaculate achieves realization of the Supreme Being, which represents the culmination of knowledge. The following verses expound that way.
Buddhya vishuddhaya yukto dhrityatmanam niyamya cha shabdadin vishayam styaktva ragadveshau vyudasya cha.
Blessed with a pure intellect, firmly in command of the self, with objects of sensual gratification like sound forsaken, with both fondness and revulsion destroyed.
Vivikta sevi lagvashi yatavakaya manasaha dhyana yoga paro nityam vairagyam samupashrita.
Dwelling in seclusion, eating frugally, subdued in mind, speech, and body, incessantly given to the yoga of meditation, firmly resigned.
Ahankaram balam darpam kamam krodham parigraham vimuccha nirmama shanto brahma bhuyaya kalpate.
Giving up conceit, arrogance of power, yearning, ill humor, and acquisitiveness, devoid of attachment, and in possession of a mind at repose, a man is worthy of becoming one with God. It is further said of such a worshipper,
Brahma bhuta prasannatma na shochati na kankshati samasarveshu bhuteshu madbhaktim labhate param.
In this serene tempered man, who views all beings equally, who abides intently in the Supreme Being, neither grieving over nor hankering after anything, there is fostered a faith in me that transcends all else. Now faith is at the stage where an outcome can ensue from it, namely, in the form of God realization.
Bhaktya mam abhijanati yavanyascha tattvataha tato mam tattvato gyatva vishate tadanantaram.
Through his transcendental faith, he knows my essence well, what my reach is, and having thus known my essence, he is at once united with me. The Supreme Being is perceived at the moment of attainment, and no sooner has this perception come about than the worshipper finds his own soul blessed with the attributes of God himself, that his soul is, like God, indestructible, immortal, eternal, ineffable, and universal. When the maladies of vanity, brute power, lust, wrath, arrogance, and infatuation that force one down into the ravines of nature are rendered feeble, and virtues such as discernment, non-attachment, self-restraint, firmness of will, abiding in solitude, and meditation that lead one to God are fully developed and active, the seeker is equipped to be united with the Supreme Being. It is this ability that is called transcendental faith, and it is by this that the worshipper comes to apprehend the ultimate reality. He then knows what God is, and, knowing his divine glories, he is at once merged with him. Putting it differently, Brahm, reality, God, the Supreme Spirit, and the Self are all substitutes for each other. Knowing any one of them, we come to know them all. This is the final accomplishment, the final liberation, the final goal. So the Gita is unambiguous in its view that in both the way of knowledge or discernment, or the way of renunciation, and the way of selfless action, the ordained deed, meditation, has to be entered upon and accomplished for the attainment of the supreme state of actionlessness. The importance of worship and meditation for the worshipper who has renounced all has been stressed so far. And now, by introducing the idea of devotion, the same is said for the yogi who undertakes selfless action.
Sarvakarmanyaphi sada kurvano madvyapashrayah matprasadadavapnoti shashvatam padamavyayam.
Although engaged in action wholeheartedly, one who finds refuge in me achieves the everlasting, indestructible, final bliss. The deed to be performed is the same, the ordained action, the exercise of yajna, and to gain it, there must be self-surrender.
Cetasa sarva karmani mai sannasya matparaha buddhi yogamupashritya macchitta satatam bhava.
Earnestly resigning all your deeds to me, finding shelter in me, and embracing the yoga of knowledge, you should ever fix your mind on me. Arjuna is counseled to sincerely yield all his actions, whatever he is capable of doing, to Krishna, to rest in his mercy rather than depend upon his own prowess, to find shelter in Krishna, to adopt the attitude of yoga, and always bring his mind to bear on him. Yoga means completion, unity, that which brings griefs to an end and provides access to God. Its mode also is a unity, the exercise of yajna, which is founded on restraint of the attaching impulses of the mind and senses, the regulation of the incoming and outgoing breath, and on meditation. Its outcome, finally, also is a unity with the eternal God. This is further elaborated in the next verse.
Macchitta sarvadurgani matprasadat tarishyasi atha chetvam ahankaran na shroshasi vinangshyasi.
Ever resting on me, you will be saved from all afflictions and gain deliverance, but you shall be destroyed if out of arrogance you do not pay heed to my words. Thus, always focusing his mind on Krishna, Arjuna will conquer the citadels of the mind and the senses. As Goswami Tulsidas has put it, even celestial beings seated at the portals of these forts obstinately keep the shutters ajar as the breezes of carnal pleasure blow in. The mind and the senses at the core are the impregnable redoubts, but Arjuna can storm them by aiming his thoughts at God alone. On the other hand, however, he shall be undone and deprived of the ultimate good if out of vanity he does not pay heed to Krishna's words. This point is now reaffirmed.
Yadahankaramashritya nayotsya iti manyase mithyaisha vyavasayaste prakritistvam niyokshati.
Your egotistic resolve not to fight is surely mistaken, for your nature will compel you to take up arms in the war.
Swabhavajena kaunteya nibaddhasvena karmana kartum nechasi yanmohat karishyasya vashopi tat.
Bound by your natural calling, even against your resolve, O son of Kunti, you will have to undertake the deed you are reluctant to do because of your self-deception. Arjuna's innate disinclination to retreat from the battle with nature will compel him to set upon the task before him. The subject is concluded with this, and Krishna next speaks on the dwelling of God.
Ishvara sarva bhutanam riddesherjuna tisthati brahmayan sarva bhutani यन्त्रारूढानि मायया.
Propelling all living things that bestride a body, which is but a contrivance, by his Maya, O Arjun, God abides in the hearts of all beings. But if God lives in our hearts and is close to us, why are we ignorant of his presence? This is so because the contraptions we call body are driven by the power of Maya, the universal ignorance or illusion, by virtue of which we consider the unreal universe as real and distinct from the Supreme Spirit. So this physical mechanism is a grave impediment, and it takes us round endlessly through one birth after another. Where, then, can we find shelter or refuge?
Tameva sharanam gaccha sarva bhavena bharata tat prasadat param shantim sthanam prapsyasi shashvatam.
Seek refuge with all your heart, O Bharat Arjun, in that God by whose grace you will attain to repose and the everlasting, ultimate bliss. So if we have to meditate, we should do it within the realm of the heart. If we know this, and yet seek for God in a temple, mosque, or church, we but waste our time. Notwithstanding this, however, as it was said earlier also, these places of formal worship have their importance for seekers with inadequate awareness. The heart is the true abode of God.
Iti te jnanamakyatam guhyat guhyataram maya vimrushyaitadasheshena yathechasi tatha kuru.
Thus have I imparted to you the knowledge which is the most mysterious of all abstruse learning. So reflect well on the whole of it, and then you may do as you wish. The wisdom that Krishna has accorded is the truth. It marks the sphere where the seeker has to make his quest, and it is also the point of attainment. Yet the harsh fact is that God is commonly not perceptible. Krishna now deliberates upon the way out of this difficulty.
Sarva guhyatamam bhuyah shrinu me paramam vachah ishtosi me dridhamiti tato vakshami te hitam.
Listen yet again to my most secret words. Indeed, felicitous, that I am going to speak to you because you are the dearest to me. Krishna endeavors once more to enlighten Arjuna. God always stands by the seeker, for he is so dear to him. Arjuna is beloved of Krishna, and any benediction that the Lord bestows upon him cannot be too much. He will incessantly exert himself for the sake of his devotee. But what is the blessed revelation that Krishna is going to make to Arjuna?
Manmana bhava madbhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru mame vaishyasi satyante प्रतिजाने प्रियोऽसि मे.
I give you my sincere pledge, because you are so dear to me, that you must attain to me if you keep me in mind, adore me, worship me, and bow in obeisance to me. Arjuna was exhorted earlier to seek refuge in the God that dwells in the realm of the heart, and now he is prompted to find shelter under Krishna. He is also told that in order to find this sanctuary, he has to listen again to the Lord's most esoteric words. Does not Krishna intend to communicate by this that finding shelter under a noble teacher-preceptor is indispensable for the seeker who has taken to the spiritual path? Krishna, himself a Yogeshwar, then enlightens Arjuna on the way of true self-surrender.
सर्वधर्मान् परित्यज्य मामेकं शरणं व्रज अहं त्वा सर्वपापेभ्यो मोक्षयिष्यामि मा शुचः.
Grieve not, for I shall free you from all sins if you abandon all other obligations and seek refuge in me alone. Arjuna is counseled that he has to rid himself of concern about what category of doer he is, whether Brahman or Kshatriya or Vaishya or Shudra, and look for shelter under Krishna alone. By doing so, he will be absolved of all iniquities and afflictions. The accomplished teacher-preceptor takes it upon himself to effect the gradual elevation of the pupil to ever more refined spiritual states and his release from all sins, if, instead of worrying about his position on the path of action, the pupil single-mindedly seeks refuge in his mentor and looks up to no one else but his accomplished teacher-preceptor. All sages have said the same. When a holy writing is rendered, it may appear that it is for all, but it is truly secret teaching. Secret undoubtedly because it is permitted only to those who are spiritually equipped to study and profit by it. Arjuna is such a deserving pupil, and so it is that Krishna instructs him so earnestly. Now Krishna himself elaborates the merits of the worthy pupil.
Idam te na tapaskaya na bhaktaya kadachana na cha shushrusave vacham na cha mam yobhyasuyati.
This Gita, which has been articulated for you, must never be made known to one who is bereft of penance, devotion, and of willingness to listen, as also to one who speaks ill of me. Krishna was a realized sage, and along with adorers, he must also have faced some slanderers. The Gita is not for people who speak maliciously of God. But then, to whom should this sacred knowledge be made known?
Ya imam paramam guhyam madbhakteshvabhidhasyati bhaktim mai param kritva mame vaishyatya samshayah.
The one who, with firm devotion to me, imparts this most secret teaching to my worshippers, will doubtlessly attain to me. And then Krishna speaks about the one who disseminates the sacred knowledge.
न च तस्मान् मनुष्येषु कश्चिन्मे प्रियकृत्तमः भविता न च मे तस्मात् अन्यः प्रियतरो भुवि.
Neither is there among mankind any doer who is dearer to me than this man, nor will there be any in the world who is dearer to me than him. The man who enlightens Krishna's devotees, souls who adhere to the Lord, is the most beloved of him, because he is the only source of benediction, the only highway that leads one to God. He is the one who teaches men to go along the right path.
Adhyeshyate chaya imam dharmyam samvadamavayoho jnanayagena tenaham ishtasyamiti me matihi.
And it is my belief that I shall have been worshipped through the yagya of knowledge by one who makes a thorough study of this sacred dialogue between us. The yagya of knowledge is that the outcome of which is wisdom. The nature of this wisdom has been elaborated earlier. This wisdom is the awareness that is acquired along with direct perception of God. And it is with such wisdom, such awareness, that the dedicated and industrious disciple of the Gita will adore Krishna. This is something of which the Lord is firmly assured.
Shraddhavananasuyascha Srinuyadapi yo naraha Sopi mukta shubhan lokan Prapnuyat punya karmana.
Even he will be freed from sins who just hears the Gita with devoutness and without any ill will, and he will secure the worlds of the righteous. Even hearing the teachings of the Gita with faith and without any carping is enough to elevate one to a superior mode of existence, for by this also its sacred precepts will be inculcated in the mind. Krishna has thus, in verses 67 to 71 of the present chapter, said that imparting of the teachings of the Gita to the deserving is as vital as withholding them from the undeserving. Since even hearing the secret teaching of the Gita motivates the worshipper to the required endeavor, the one who just hears it will also surely attain to Krishna. As for the one who propagates the scripture, no one else is dearer to the Lord than this man. The man who studies the Gita worships Krishna by the yagya of knowledge. True knowledge is what issues forth from the process called yagya. In the verses under consideration, therefore, the Lord has pointed out the benefits of study, dissemination, and hearing of the Gita. Now, at the end, he asks Arjuna if he has understood and assimilated his words.
Kachide tachrutam partha Tvayaicagrena chetasa कच्चिदज्ञानसम्मोहः प्रनष्टस्ते धनञ्जय।
Have you, O Parth, listened intently to my words, and, O Dhananjay, is your delusion born out of ignorance dispelled?
नष्टो मोहः स्मृतिर्लब्धा त्वत्प्रसादान्मयाच्युत स्थितोऽस्मि गतसन्देहः करिष्ये वचनं तव।
Arjuna said, "Since my ignorance has been dispelled by your grace, O Achyut, and I have recovered discernment, I am free from doubt and shall follow your precepts." Arjuna here states, "Because of your grace, my passion is destroyed. I have regained my memory. I am consistent being bereft of doubts and am ever ready to obey your orders." Now, whereas Arjuna was perplexed at the time of reviewing both the armies at the beginning of the Gita, to find his kith and kin therein, he prayed, "Govinda, how can we be happy after annihilation of our own relatives? Family tradition will be destroyed because of such a war. There will be scarcity of obsequial offerings like rice cakes and so on to the departed ancestors. Mongrelization of castes will take place. We, being wise, are yet ready to commit sin. Why do not we find a way out of committing these sins? Let the armed Kaurava kill me, an unarmed man, in the war, and that death is glorious. Govinda, I am not going to wage war." Saying thus, Arjuna sat down at the back of his chariot. Thus, in the Gita, Arjuna in fact put forward in front of Yogeshwar Krishna a series of big and small questions. For instance, in chapter 2, verse 7, "Please, will you tell me that practice of worship through which I can attain to the absolute good?" In chapter 2, verse 54, "What are the attributes of an enlightened sage?" In verse 1 of chapter 3, "If in your view the way of knowledge is superior, then why do you compel me to do these terrible actions?" In verse 36 of chapter 3, "Even without wishing, under whose guidance does a man commit sin?" In verse 4 of chapter 4, "Your birth is of recent times, whereas the sun was born a long time back. Then how can I believe that you, Krishna, taught yoga to the sun in the distant past, at the time of the beginning of this kalp?" In verse 1 of chapter 5, "Sometimes you praise renunciation, the way of knowledge, and yet at other times you support the way of selfless action. Please tell me, which one of these, finally, is the one by which I can attain to the absolute good?" In verse 35 of chapter 6, "The mind is very fickle. With slack efforts, what would be his lot?" In verses 1 and 2 of chapter 8, "Govinda, Krishna, who is it, that supreme being whom you have described? What is the religious knowledge? What are lords of gods and lords of being? Who is the Lord of sacrifice in this body? What is that action? How do you come to be known at the end of time?" Thus, Arjuna put forward 7 questions. In verse 17 of chapter 10, Arjuna has evinced curiosity, asking, "While meditating incessantly, through what feelings do I call you to mind, to remember you?" In verse 4 of chapter 11, he prayed and submitted, "I long to see the splendors that have been described by you." In verse 1 of chapter 12, "Who is the superior possessor of yoga among the devotees who worship you well through unvacillating attentiveness, and those who worship the imperishable, unmanifest Supreme Being?" In verse 21 of chapter 14, "A man who has surpassed the 3 natural properties is liberated, and how can a man surpass these 3 properties?" In verse 1 of chapter 17, "What would be the fate of a person who engaged in yajna with dedication and yet does not follow the procedures as laid down by the scriptures?" And in verse 1 of chapter 18, "Oh, the mighty-armed, I yearn to learn separately and individually everything about the nature of relinquishment and renunciation." Thus, throughout the Gita, Arjuna continued to put forward questions. The esoteric secrets which could not be asked by him were revealed by Lord Krishna himself. As soon as Arjuna's doubts were dispelled, he was freed from asking questions and said, "Govinda, now I am ever ready to obey your instructions." In truth, the questions raised by Arjuna were for the benefit of all mankind, and not for him alone. Without having the answers to these questions, no seeker can progress forward on the path of the highest good. Therefore, to enable a man to obey an enlightened sage teacher, and to progress on the path of the highest good, it is necessary that one should learn the complete teachings of the Gita. Arjuna was convinced and satisfied. In chapter 11, after having revealed his cosmic form, Krishna said in the 54th verse, "O Arjuna, a worshipper can directly know this form of mine, acquire its essence, and even become one with it by total and unswerving dedication." And just now he has asked him whether he is rid of his delusion. Arjuna replies that his ignorance is allayed and that his understanding is restored. Now he will act at Krishna's behest. Arjuna's liberation should come along with this realization. He has indeed become whatever he had to be. But Scripture is meant for posterity, and the Gita is here for all of us to avail ourselves of. Thus, the divine message of Yogeshwar Krishna was concluded. At this moment, Sanjay again spoke.
इत्यहं वासुदेवस्य पार्थस्य च महात्मनः संवादमिममश्रौषम् अद्भुतं रोमहर्षणम्.
Sanjay said, "Thus have I heard the mysterious and sublime dialogue of Vasudeva Krishna and the sage-like Arjuna." Arjuna is portrayed as a man with a noble soul. He is a yogi, a seeker, a sage rather than an archer set to kill. But how has Sanjay been enabled to hear the dialogue between Krishna and the saintly Arjuna?
व्यासप्रसादात् श्रितवान् एतद् गुह्यमहं परम् Yogam Yogeshwarat Krishnat Sakshat Kathayatah Swayam.
It is by the blessing of the most revered Vyas that I have heard this transcendental, most mysterious yoga enunciated directly by the Lord of Yoga, Krishna himself. Sanjay regards Krishna as a master of yoga, one who is a yogi himself, and who is also endowed with the gift of imparting yoga to others.
Rajan samsmritya samsmritya Sauvadamimam adbhutam Keshavarjunayoh punyam Rishyami cha muhurmuhu.
The recollection of the felicitous and marvelous colloquy between Keshav, Krishna, and Arjuna transports me, O King Dhritarashtra, to sublime joy, time after time. We too can experience Sanjay's bliss if we remember the sacred dialogue with perfect contentment. Sanjay then recalls the Lord's miraculous bearing and speaks of it.
Tatcha samsmritya samsmritya Rupamatyadbhutam Harehi Vismayo me mahan rajan Rishyami cha punah punah.
Recalling the amazing visage of the Lord again and again, O King, I am lost in wonder and ecstasy over and over. Sanjay's rapture can be ours also, if we incessantly keep in our minds the aspect of the cherished end. That brings us to the last verse of the Gita, in which Sanjay states his final conclusion.
Yatra Yogeshwarah Krishno Yatra Partho Dhanurdharaha Tatra Shrir Vijayo Bhutihi Dhruva Nitir Matir Mama Tatra Shrir Vijayo Bhutihi Dhruva Nitir Matir Mama.
Good fortune, conquest, splendor, and steadfast wisdom abide wherever are Lord Krishna and the noble archer Arjuna. Such is my conviction. Intent contemplation and firm restraint of the senses are Arjuna's bow, the legendary Gandiva. So it is that Arjuna is a sage who meditates with equanimity. So wherever Yogeshwar Krishna and he are, there too dwell the triumph after which there is no defeat, the magnificence of God, and the firmness of resolve that enables one to be constant in this inconstant world. Such is the well-deliberated judgment of Sanjay, of the seer who is gifted with celestial vision. The great archer Arjuna is no longer amidst us, but were steadfast wisdom and the glory that comes with spiritual conquest for him alone? The Gita is a dramatization of an historical event that belonged to a certain time, namely the age that is known as Dwapar. This does not mean, however, that Arjuna's realization of the truth of God came to an end with the ceasing of his time. Yogeshwar Krishna has assured us repeatedly that he abides in the realm of the heart. He exists within all of us. He is also within you. Arjuna is a symbol of affectionate devotion, which is but another name of the mind's inclination and dedication to the cherished goal. If a worshipper is endowed with such devotion, perpetual triumph against the demeaning properties of nature is assured. With such devotion, there must always necessarily be steadfast wisdom. Rather than being confined to a certain place, time, or individual, these attainments are universal, forever and for all. So long as beings exist, God must dwell in their hearts, and the soul must impatiently hunger for the Supreme Being, and he who is affectionately devoted to God will attain to Arjuna's status. Every one of us can, therefore, aspire hopefully to the ultimate bliss of direct perception of God. Conclusion. At the beginning of the 18th, the concluding chapter of the Gita, Arjuna wishes to be enlightened on the similarity as well as the distinction between relinquishment and renunciation. Krishna has pronounced a judgment, which is that yajna, penance, and charity must never be forsaken, for they bring deliverance to men of discernment. So fostering them, while also giving up unrighteous impulses that are inimical to them, is true renunciation. Such renunciation is perfect, but relinquishment with a desire for some profit in exchange is tainted by passion and moral blindness, and it is definitely evil when the prescribed deed is forsaken out of self-deception. Renunciation is the crowning point of resignation. Performance of the prescribed task and the rapture that results from meditation are indeed virtuous, while sensual pleasure is an outcome of infatuation. And the pleasure in which there is no prospect whatsoever of the ultimate union with God undoubtedly issues forth from ignorance. This chapter also sheds light on the nature of renunciation. The resigning of all one has is renunciation. Mere putting on of a certain kind of attire is not renunciation. Absorption in the ordained deed, while leading a life of seclusion, with a due appraisal of one's own strength, or with a sense of self-surrender, is inescapable. Renunciation is the name of the abandonment of all action, along with consummation, and so but a synonym for the final deliverance. That absolution is the crowning point of renunciation. Thus concludes the 18th chapter in the Upanishad of ShrimadBhagavadGita on the knowledge of the Supreme Spirit, the science of yoga, and the dialogue between Krishna and Arjuna entitled Sannyasa Yoga, or the Yoga of Renunciation. Thus concludes Swami Aggadanand's exposition of the 18th chapter in Yatharth Geeta. Hari Om Tat Sat.